It has been over 200 years since the death of Kitty J, but no one still knows who puts fresh flowers on J's grave still to this day. From the time she was born, Kitty J was abused, abandoned, and ostracized. Her life was one of torment, forgotten by those of her own time. Her sad legacy is preserved by a single gravestone in Dartmoor, where she has rested alone for 200 years. Mary J. was abandoned by her mother in the late 18th century and was given to an orphanage. She was given the surname J because she was the 10th girl to arrive at the orphanage. Until her teens, Mary was content at the orphanage, living and taking care of the younger children, but living in disgrace as a penniless orphan. When she grew older, she was sent to Canna Farms near neighboring Manton in Dartmoor to earn money. She was employed to work in the house as a maid and also in the field as a laborer. After a sexual assault occurred, she became pregnant. She was then forced to leave the farm. With nowhere else to turn, she ended her life. She was refused and burial at the churches and was buried at the crossroads of 3 parishes. Following her death, stories of haunting began immediately as locals claimed a hooded figure often knelt by the grave in the moonlight. Legend asserts that her spirit haunts her grave and Dartmoor. It has become a well-known landmark on Dartmoor Devon in southwest England and is the subject of local folklore and several ghost stories. The small burial mound is at the side of a minor road about 1 mile northwest of Houndtor at the entrance to a green lane that leads to Natsworthy. Fresh flowers are regularly placed on the grave, although no one admits to putting them there. Now, the early reference and occurrence of the grave occurred in 1851 of 23rd January on North Devon Journal under County Intelligence in the parish of Manton near Wincombe on the Moor, while some men in the employ of James Bryant were removing some accumulations of waste soil a few days since they discovered what appeared to be a grave. On further investigation, they found the skeleton of a body which proved from inquiry to be the remains of Anne J., a woman who hung herself some 3 generations since in a barn at a place called Fodder and was buried at Forgrace Lane, according to the custom of that enlightened age. In 1876, Robert Diamond edited and published a book entitled Things New and Old concerning the parish of Wincombe in the Moor and its neighborhood, which contains the following: a simple mound and unwrought headstone by the roadside marks the site of a more modern grave. A poor old woman called Kate, having hung herself, was laid here under crossroads without the rites of Christian burial. There are many such graves of suicides hereabouts, and the country folk shudder as they pass the witch post by the night. It also asserted that the grave has been opened and no remains found. They had either been previously removed by friends or the burial must have taken place long ago. The grave is still distinct and the mound of earth over it is still decently kept. One of the editors of Devon Notes and Queries wrote, "A workman of mine, aged 74, informs us that about 40 years ago he was in the employ of Mr. James Bryant of Hedge Barton Manton, when he remembers Jay's grave being opened, in which a young unmarried woman who had hung herself in Cannon Farm outbuildings, which is situated between Fodder and Tow Hill, was said to have been buried, but no one then living at Manton could remember the occurrence. The grave was opened by order of Mr. James Bryan in the presence of his son-in-law, Mr. J. W. Sparrow. Bones were found, examined, and declared to be those of a female. The skull was taken to the Hedge Barton, but was afterwards placed with the bones in a box and reinterred in the old grave. A small mound raised with head and footstones erected at either end. Such is the present appearance of the grave." By 1965, Jay's grave had become a major Dartmoor attraction, with tourist coaches stopping there, while the driver and riders related their own version of the story. The mysterious appearance of fresh flowers upon the grave was also mentioned. There was always fresh flowers on the grave, the placement of which is the subject of local folklore. Some claim they are placed there by pixies. By 2007, the placing of flowers had expanded into all sorts of votive offerings, such as coins, candles, shells, small crosses, and toys. Motorists passing at night claim to have glimpsed ghostly figures in the headlights, others reporting seeing a dark hooded figure kneeling the grave. But as far as we know, we might never know who puts those flowers still to this day at Kitty J's grave, and forever be remained unsolved.